Hi, I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story, where we have a brand new ebook waiting for you, absolutely free at businessofstory.com. It's called The 5 Stages of Grief in Telling Your Business Story, How to Overcome Story Fright to Grow Your Leadership, People, and Organization. In it, we help you deal with things like denial, that story actually works, or anger, I don't know how to tell a story, bargaining, I'll do anything but tell a story, depression, I have no good stories to tell. And finally, we're going to land you on acceptance of the power of story in your life. You'll become a master storyteller when you go to businessofstory.com and download your free ebook right now. And then start living into your most potent stories.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Hi, Park Howell here, and welcome to a special edition of Business of Story. Why is it special? It's because we're coming to you from the beautiful veranda at the San Diego Convention Center on day 2 of Social Media Marketing World 18. And on today's show, we have a special guest, a guy who's an absolute fixture here at the world's largest gathering of social media entrepreneurs, gurus, you name it. And he's here on today's show to talk about comedic storytelling in corporate communications. I know, it seems like a bit of an oxymoron, but hang with us because you are going to learn how to bring a little comedy, a little levity to your communications and perhaps make the biggest impact with your storytelling that you ever have. Plus, we have a special offer at the end of this show, a brand new free ebook just for you that you're not going to want to miss. So let's get after it. Hey folks, this is Business of Story coming to you on a beautiful, Friday afternoon, San Diego Conference Center overlooking the harbor. With me, I've got Tim Washer, who he and I have been running around the show for the last 3 days. He just got off the live stage working the live camera. I guess that's the live stream. Is that right?
It's worldwide. It's global.
Global, yeah.
Yeah. And also they're beaming some of this to Mars. You can see this in Mars in about 13 years.
About 13 years.
When it will get there. Yeah.
I better change my batteries then.
Change the batteries. There is a delay because there was some profanity thanks to Joel Comm.
Yeah.
But we got time to add in the delay for sure.
Well, folks, this is not like a normal Business of Story show because number 1, we have Tim Washer on it. Number 2, this is your intro. So we have no idea what's going to happen coming up. However, we prepared very minorly when I asked him about comedy and corporate communications because that is what his life is about. And God knows we can all use a little bit more comedy in our life, especially in the corporate world.
Yeah, amen to that, brother. Amen to that. There was a great quote in Adweek right after the Super Bowl, making the comment about there were 3 trends in the Super Bowl ads, and one was kind of a series or repetition, how some of the spots would repeat throughout this. Then there was also the whole, being a good world citizen, this idea of, making a contribution to the world. There was some of that as well.
The purpose-driven brand.
Yes, exactly. Right. And then the final one was comedy. That was one of the top trends. And one of the creative directors had made a quote to Adweek saying, yeah, my gosh, who doesn't need to laugh now? We're at a point in time right now where people make that need to laugh more. So I totally agree with that.
What was your favorite spot from this year's Super Bowl?
Oh my gosh. It was, I wrote a blog post about my 3 favorites, and by far one of them was, one of the ones that I really loved was Australian. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, we are, we're testing the audio out here. We are outdoors. There's a one-man band playing. The guy has 37 instruments, including an accordion.
And it says security on his back, so he must be bored. But I can tell he's got his eye on
he has his eye while he's talking to his mother about, giving her update on his job at San Diego. So God bless him.
Anyways, Super Bowl spot.
Yeah, it was the spot that Australia did, the Travelers Bureau of Australia did, this fake movie trailer, a Crocodile Dundee sequel.
Yeah.
I think it was The Son of Dundee. And, man, that was so well done. So well done. And, there's a longer trailer. I think the spot they ran a 60-second spot on the Super Bowl, but they have a couple of different cuts of the trailer, that run 90 seconds to 2 minutes online. Do yourself a favor and go Google that. It's just so well done.
We'll put it in the show notes too. I have not seen that.
Okay.
I was up, in Seattle working, with my mom and dad. And
they don't have TVs there?
Well, we were going through kind of a rough time, and I just didn't get a chance to really watch the Super Bowl this time around. So, I always watch the spots, but I just haven't been keen, hooked into it for whatever reason. Yep. But folks, Tim, so I just listened to you on the show. I really haven't even done your background bio. What I do know, spent 7 years at Cisco as a creative director, bringing a lot of comedy into that big tech company. Prior to that, you have been in the comedy world writing for SNL. You've been on John Oliver's show, Conan the Barbarian, or a different?
Yes,
okay,
many people confuse that. Yeah.
But then when Joel Common here was introducing you, he was going on and on about New York Times, and give us a little bit of background. You were in comedy, and then somehow, I guess as a twist of comedic fate, you got sucked into the corporate world.
Well, actually, it started the other way around.
Oh.
I started off at Xerox doing sales, and was there for 5 years, went back, got an MBA to do marketing of technology at UT Austin. And then one of my professors
said,
that's right.
There.
Yeah. Oh, she did?
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out as a connecting thing.
Could we get her online?
I can do a FaceTime with her.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I'd like to do that. And I think the security guard actually did a stint in Austin.
Well, he's trying to get on the show here, but okay.
Yeah. Well, anyways, then was working in technology marketing, moved up to New York to become an analyst. And then there was a moment where it was a calling. It was just clear to me I had an obligation to work in comedy. And
going from sales to an analyst
to analyst,
so just the pendulum completely went to the other side. Yeah, okay,
it did, and it wasn't, Park. It wasn't anything that I wanted to do, man. I was afraid of it, and I didn't want to do it for a lot of reasons, but just realized it wasn't a choice anymore, And so,
now wait a minute, so it just welled up inside of you? Like, I got to get on stage and own a room and tell funny stuff, although I'm terrified to do that?
No, you know what it was? There was a moment, it was during the season of Lent, and I was reading at my church, we had a Lenten devotional guide. And there was one day, it was on March 3rd, where it talked about everybody has a gift. All 7 billion of us have a gift. We've been given a gift, a spiritual gift that we need to share with others. And so there was a wonderful quote by the German theologian, Frederick Buechner. It says, the place God calls you to is a place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And so it has some of this reading, and then 3 questions. One was, what is your spiritual gift? And I thought comedy. The second question was, have you, have other people confirmed this with you? Have other people told you this? And I thought, yeah. And the last question was on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a steward have you been of this gift? And I thought 0. And right when I thought 0, I kind of felt this word obligation. I didn't hear It wasn't audible. It was just, I just felt this word obligation. So that's what it was. I just realized, okay, it's.
So were you funny as a kid? I mean,
I was.
Were you the class clown?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
So that's something that's always come easy for me, is making people laugh. But I didn't want to, there were two things holding me back. One was I didn't want the obligation. I didn't want the expectation. I didn't want to, I think part of it was I was afraid of the work involved and setting an expectation of, okay, I'm going to be funny and not being able to meet that. And then the other thing was my dad is a Presbyterian minister, and he's such a humble man, and he never lets the light shine on him. You know, if somebody wants to ask him to speak or whatnot, he always tries to give that with somebody else. You know, he shares that with somebody else. And I admired that quality so much. And I thought, my gosh, if I say I'm a comedian, you know, I'm doing the exact opposite. What an arrogant thing. This is what I thought. I thought to say, look, because implied in that is you're saying, hey, I think I'm funny. And also I want the limelight. You know, I want to be up on stage. And I just, that was a hard thing. And it really took me a while to get over that struggle and realize, well, if you got a light to shine, then you have a responsibility to do that, regardless of whatever your hangups are. Yeah.
Well, and you've done a lot in stand-up and improv, and you gotta have a lot of intellect going to hang with that and make that work, and being in the moment, but then being absolutely spontaneous too. So I could see where sales would certainly play into that.
Yeah.
Because that's improv all the way through. For the most part, you have your script, but as you know, you've got to know your audience, so you go in there.
That's right.
And then you go into the analyst side, so you can see that brain firing up, and I see where those two worlds then would come together in the improv world. Absolutely.
Yeah, it ended up, it's one of those things where when I first, I think I was like 30 when this calling came to me, and I'm thinking, man, why didn't I am so unprepared for this. I'm so unqualified because I've been in business, and, I don't have a liberal arts degree. I've never studied acting. And I just, I remember thinking, why didn't I get this? Why didn't I feel this nudge earlier?
Yeah.
And just for the reasons you explained, I realized later, well, I think the place I'm supposed to be is in the corporate world, trying to bring some laughter and joy there. And you can also bring change, humor and lampooning, just counterproductive behavior that we have, just inefficiencies.
Well, The Office.
The Office does it brilliantly. You're exactly right. The Office does that brilliantly.
Yeah.
It's so well done. And all of it. I have a friend, when I was at IBM, I had a friend who couldn't watch The Office because Michael Scott reminded him too much of his manager.
It felt too close to home. I watched Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And I sometimes have to cringe and say, oh, my God, those words have come out of my mouth before. Those self-important bullshit words have come out of my mouth before.
That's right.
And I love that show. It's one of my favorite all-time shows.
Oh, yeah. So good.
So you really started following this calling when you were 30, and at 30 you feel like an old man, but you still got the rest of the world ahead of you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And when you go take an improv class, you are an old man at 30.
Yeah,
because I'm in there with 20-year-olds, and in most cases these are actors, and a lot of them are very good-looking people, and I'm in there 30, with no understanding of what most of these terms they're using mean, and I certainly felt like I didn't belong, no question. But and my first instructor was Amy Poehler. She was
Amy Poehler.
2 years, I think, before she got onto SNL.
Yeah.
So she wasn't Amy Poehler.
Where were you? Where were you taking this course?
This is in New York at the Upright Citizen Brigade. There was an old theater called Solo Arts down like on near Union Square, not too far from Union Square, like 15th Street and between 6th and 7th, I think it was. It's not there anymore, but it was a great little old theater. It was so awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And that's where you started? And Amy Poehler is one of your instructors?
Yes. Yeah, for about 2 years, I got to work with her.
When then did you write for Saturday Night Live?
Well, it was after she got on. So she got on SNL, and when she got on to Weekend Update, she helped me get a role there as I was a freelance writer for SNL.
Well, you obviously stood out then in this course as not just being the old guy.
Yeah,
but,
you know what?
You had some talent.
A lot of it is, and a lot of it's just listening. And I think one thing that works against actors is a lot, not all of them, but a lot of actors are very big into, hey, I need to take the spotlight. I need to make sure people are looking at me. I need to play this big, and I want to be at the center stage. And that definitely wasn't me at all. And it helps to kind of play things small. Mm-hmm. Meaning not having these big gestures or big voice, but being very subtle. And a lot of times that comes across as more authentic and true when you play it small. And that's a challenge for a lot of actors. I think for me, it's easy because a lot of times through my life, I've felt small. I felt undeserving. I've learned all this. You go through divorce and you go through therapy. And that was one thing my counselor said, look, you feel undeserving. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. You learn these things about yourself and kind of everything comes together. And it's funny, all these weaknesses you think you have and when you carry shame around with them, you start to realize, wait a minute, this is who I am. And this is the way the universe has organized things. This is actually how I can be myself and how I can have joy and maybe create joy in others. I mean, everybody's like that because we all have shame. We've all have regrets and mistakes. And once we kind of come to terms with saying, this is who I am, and this is part of me, and I'm still a good person, I think then we start to become open to what's available to us and what's going to bring us joy.
Well, and you were just speaking in there, you made the point about comedy in corporations, anywhere really, but start with something that makes you mad, pisses you off, or that you're like really uncomfortable with.
Yes.
And then take that and go from there. And I will say, when I think I'm the funniest is probably I've had a couple beers in me and I get a rant about something. Like, for instance, I have no beer in me at this point.
No, but we can get some. I'll ask the security guy.
A
couple Modelo's over here.
That would be, sir?
He's still talking to his mom.
Blinkers. People that don't use their turn signals. I'm irrationally upset about that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like cutting in line. Where it's basically saying, F you, I'm coming in and I'm not even going to let you know that I'm going to do it. And I don't actually care that you are there.
Yeah.
I mean, I just envision a 30-second TV spot of people driving actually using their turn signals, and then you add little voices to those turn signals. Pardon me, excuse me, is it okay if I move over? I have this intention, or someone else.
They're all British, very polite.
That
British.
Would be nice. Yes. The big truck driver, of course, has got to be some big burly guy. Pardon me, I got to bring this thing over. But I drive through Phoenix, Arizona, and I am astounded that people can't use their index finger to throw that stupid turn signal. And it pisses me off to no end.
It's a lot of work.
I've been trying to get some therapy on that. Spent a lot of money on it. I can't get over it.
So look, you take that. That's a good place to start with a comedy. You start with what bothers you, and you could go in a couple of directions. One way to go with that is the explanation. Tell us what's behind that. And maybe it is what you just said, that we can't use our index fingers. So you go into how much work that is, and you compare the work I got to do, the endurance I have to put my index finger throughout this day.
Well, the calorie burn.
Did I have enough breakfast and protein to get this done? That's one thing to explore.
And we're not even talking about the synapse that it requires in your brain to connect to make that work.
That's right.
It's not working, obviously.
That's right. So that's another thing is to look at, that would be funny to show one of those, MRIs of the brain and what the brain actually goes through when it's time to turn on the blinker. You're approaching the stoplight. This is the moment for the synapse to fire. But instead, you're thinking about, puppies.
No. It is. It gets overwritten by your need to text while going through the intersection.
That's right. And so you show that, it's kind of you have almost parallel to a Maslow's hierarchy, right? Of what comes before, being polite and courteous.
The enlightenment of using your turn signal?
The enlightenment, food, the other self-preservation pieces that come in there.
Well, what about social? I mean, just the whole social aspect. You're being completely antisocial.
You are being completely.
But you are a part of your own tribe. That's important to know. The non-turn signal.
The non-turn signal. Yeah. Well, that's another thing. I mean, you could show, this has been overdone. We actually did this at Cisco 10 years ago is the, using the, support group.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do that now just because now it's been overdone, but a support group where you open up with, hi, my name's Larry, and I can't use the signal.
Those things, those support groups, especially the non-turn signal support group, they do not even hold the door open for each other.
No, they don't. Because again, they all hate each other and they don't want to use their fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, but that's so. How did you take comedy? And here you are at 32 now. You're writing
That's
for
right, 30.
SNL.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself on the John Oliver Show, who is one of the funniest guys going out there. How'd you get on the John Oliver Show?
So that came much later. I started doing TV commercials.
Were you writing them or in them?
Both. And it's two very different things. The ones I was writing, I produced. And so I would, I started IBM at 2004 and started doing, there weren't television commercials, but these were online spots, and it was through IBM. I've been trying to get an agent forever and just no luck whatsoever. And then, a good friend of mine at IBM, he tells me, "Oh, hey, my sister's an agent." And I said, "Okay, really? And would you share my reel?" He said, "Yeah, no problem." So we sent that on and I went and met with her and her partners, and then they took me on. And, it was so funny. I mean, I was sure the meeting went horrible. It was, it's one of those things you go in there and they weren't too, she didn't seem interested and, a couple very cordial and stuff, but, I guess they had seen what they needed to see and said, "Okay, great." And I was floored. I was having lunch in Somers, New York at an IBM cafeteria. And when I got the call and she said, "Yeah, we want to sign you." I was so thrilled. And like that week, I think before I signed the paperwork, they sent me an audition for a T-Mobile commercial, and I got that, and it was with Catherine Zeta-Jones. And so like a week later, I'm on a plane flying to Vancouver, and I'm sitting on a couch next to Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Are you asking yourself, who is this guy?
That's exactly. I mean, it was so bizarre. But and just what a joy, though. It was so much fun. And I think for everybody, I think when you feel that joy, whatever it is that you're doing, when you feel that joy, it's like, all right, this is my calling. This is what I need to be doing more of. Yeah.
So then that translates, whatever. Transcends probably a little heavy word for this, but, got you on John Oliver, Conan show. I mean,
yeah.
You hit the big one.
That agent. So the same agent, Kirsten Walther booked me, that spot and then booked me on the John Oliver show. So she books me for TV commercials, and then also like she's gotten me some stuff on Letterman when the Late Show and things like that. So she got me that opportunity. She calls me up, says, "Yeah, do you want to play a climate change denier?" And I said, "Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that is." I show up there and they tell me, "Yeah, you're going to be debating Bill Nye," and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" And it was so much fun. And then so I go sit down and I meet John Oliver, and man, he could not have been more gracious. Just such a kind man. And then Bill Nye as well. He's just a genuine kind person. And you're around all these really successful people, and they're just so down to earth. And I mean, not everybody's like that, but these guys were. The writers on Conan O'Brien, my gosh, they were some of the friendliest people I know. Just really friendly people,
Hey, I think one of the friendliest persons I know is a security guard. Let's walk over and let's interview him real quick, and then we can ask him if you can keep it down.
Keep it down? I think that's a good idea.
So, folks, we're picking up.
Are you picking up a lot?
We're gonna make our way over and introduce ourselves.
First of all, let's see if he's packing heat before because that'll help kind of govern our tone.
He is a convention center security guard, conference center. So, but he's reading. It looks like he's reading out of a book. Let's.
I think he is.
Excuse me, sir. Hey, we're doing the Business of Story podcast. Can we interview you real quick?
Absolutely.
What's your name?
My name is Dante.
Dante.
How
long are you from San Diego?
I'm actually from Georgia.
Georgia.
I was in the Marine Corps. I came out here in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And I just loved it so much, I just stayed out here.
Were you at Pendleton?
I was at 29 Palms. I was at the Stumps.
Okay. All right.
At the Stumps. Why do they call it the Stumps?
Because it ain't nothing there but desert. It's nothing but the Mojave. You in the Mojave. Just you in the Mojave.
Is that right? Now, you're over here reading something. We're hearing you over there. What are you doing? It sounds awesome.
Oh, it's nothing really.
Oh, it is something.
That's what that means. It's confidential. It's we don't have the security clearance for that. It's Marine stuff.
No, not really. Well, this is
something's going down
social
today.
Media marketing thing.
Yeah.
To the social media marketing event.
Okay.
They out here networking with small businesses and everything. We're doing the security. Right on.
But you're over here. You're talking like you're reading a script or something. That's what we were wondering. You had our attention.
I was talking. Well, yeah, I was
on the
really
phone?
thinking about the Black Panther movie.
Oh yeah, I took my son to see that.
Yeah, that's why we were just talking about that. That's it.
Is it awesome? I haven't seen it yet.
It's good.
Yeah.
A little long, I'd say, but it was solid.
I think it was like
my son loved
2 hours, right? I don't know.
I think
like
it was more than that.
159. Well, yeah, if it was more than that, I think it was like 2. Well, everybody was waiting for the last part. If you waited to the very end of Bucky, then to look for all the hidden things, then no, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, well,
That's
thanks.
exactly
We just want to say hello because we were just recording over there and we were hearing you on here. So we just want to see what's up. We thought maybe you're reading a script or you're practicing or something.
No.
Not working on the sequel?
Oh, no.
Okay.
All right.
Have a
thank
great
you
one.
for your service. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Well, I think that went well.
Yeah, I feel good about that. That was not his mom. Let's clarify for our viewers here.
That was not what?
He was not talking to his mom on the phone.
No.
That was my guess because
I didn't know who he was talking to.
The volume would go up and down, and I thought there was some anger over a Thanksgiving scenario.
It felt like it. I thought that he was actually practicing for a role. You know, he's in SoCal here. He's looking at that next, Black Panther movie. He might be looking at the next
shoot up to L.A., get an audition in? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, folks, thanks for going along on that little ride. That was interesting.
I think the people loved it. I can tell.
Yeah. And so you go from this into the world of Cisco.
Yeah. So the comedy thing, I was doing it on the side along with the corporate job. And then like at the end of 2001, I asked my wife at the time, I said, look, can I quit my job? And I was writing a screenplay. I was halfway through a screenplay. Was having a hard time finishing that and thought it was because of my job. And I quit my job and knew immediately the next day I did a free fall into a depression and realized, no, it was fear that was keeping me from it. It had nothing to do with my job. And here I am giving up my paycheck for no reason. But, it took me about over a year to start really pulling some income in. Mm-hmm. But then I wrote, some comedy for the CMO of Pepsi for one of their sales meetings, and just these different projects would come in around, doing companies that said, look, we got to connect with our
So you're paying
customers.
the bills by doing this.
And I'm making twice as much as I was in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep that running for like 3 months. And then my daughter's born. And that was a situation, we had, most people didn't you see that coming? But, she was adopted. So that came in a lot. We outsourced that function. So it comes a lot faster. I needed to go get a job. And so I started working for, or looking around trying to get on with like one of these big event agencies that produces events for corporations. And a friend of mine said, oh, you know what? IBM has an opening as a speechwriter, in corporate communications and doing events.
I think you're right,
Is that the Black Panther? The motorcycle thing?
Could be, yeah.
So, I got a job at IBM and I went in there. I remember thinking, okay, as a corporate communications guy, what are our objectives for the next year? And the guy was telling me, well, our salespeople, the head of sales was saying, our salespeople need to do a better job of listening. They don't know much about the customer. They'll go in with these long presentations about IBM and they're not tailored for the specific customer of the industry. And he's given me this negative feedback and that we needed to share with our salespeople. And I thought, you know what, that sounds like a comedy video because it's a great way to, you just lampoon. If you lampoon the behavior that you're trying to change, that's a lot. That's an easier pill to swallow.
Instead of coming out and saying, now start listening.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we made the head of sales. We put him in. He was a star of it and we made him a buffoon. And it was clever though. I mean, it was clever comedy. It was clever and intelligent, but, done so where he was, being self-deprecating and that, that's very ingratiating. People they'll let their defenses down. Once you start laughing, and the whole endorphins start firing. the dopamine's released in the brain.
Well, and you had said in there earlier that laughter, you feel, is the quickest way to emotion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Joel Kahn brought that up. He said he was watching something. He was going through a tough time in his life. He was watching a funny video on YouTube. He started busting up laughing, and then that turned to tears. And I do think, and we were talking about the differences between gender, and I do think men have a little harder time going to tears, letting themselves be vulnerable like that. But when we do laugh, everybody wants to laugh, and so we're fine with laughing, but a lot of times that will be an emotional trigger for us and lead us to the other emotions like sadness. Mm-hmm. But still, it's an important healing, cathartic release, and a lot of it wouldn't happen without laughter, like in Joel's situation.
Well, and in the corporate world, especially the big behemoth IBMs and Cisco's of the world, laughter's not a thing, emotion's not a thing. And to get these guys to relax enough to be human is really difficult.
That is.
How did that first production go for you?
The first production, it was, it definitely felt like it was blessed, meaning, there were so many things that could have and should have gone wrong, but everything worked out well. So the first production, like one thing when you're trying to pitch the idea of being funny in a large corporation like an IBM, you got a lot of hurdles to overcome. And one of them is we don't want anybody to be embarrassed, and we don't want to look foolish, and we don't want to make fun of anybody. So with the first one we did, we said, look, can we do this for a sales meeting? And everybody, salespeople love to laugh. And if they're going to be in like an all-day, 3-day strategy meeting, training, they want some levity in there to break it up and keep the energy going. So people are a lot more open to that. And you're not talking about, hey, I want to put something on YouTube. We actually did the first one before YouTube was around. So there's risk. You're lowering the risk quite a bit. We're not talking about an online video where people can, trolls can hate it. We just want to show it in a closed room of employees. Mm-hmm. And so we were actually here in San Diego when we did this. It was a big sales meeting. I think we had about 2,000 people in the room. And so we opened up the VP's presentation with it, and it just crushed, man. People, part of it was they had been, in 2 days of heavy technical training on the mainframe, not easy. So they're desperate for a break, and we gave that to them. And the thing was, it was just, it wasn't written by a corporate committee. It was written by some guy who'd been working in comedy, who didn't know any better of what the boundaries were and stuff, and just made
kind of
something
your
funny.
Version of Office then for them. And it probably surprised the heck out of them.
Yeah, there were a lot of similarities in the sense, I mean, we were kind of, again, we kind of had the head of sales play a buffoon, and just, it was real easy to film. We spent one day. I had a good friend of mine. His name's Scott Teems, and he's a brilliant writer and film director. He's now writing on the show. He's writing for Narcos on Netflix.
Pretty funny show.
But listen, at the time when we were doing this, it's hilarious. Yeah. There's nothing. I mean, nothing says comedy, right?
Like murder and drugs and cartel.
Exactly like cartels.
Yeah, comedy and cartels.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do.
Well, Scott's always been attracted to kind of the darker side of life. I mean, his feature films are all about. They're very dark. He doesn't write comedy except when we're working together, but he's so gifted at it. But here's a guy writing for one of the most successful shows on TV now, but you got to start somewhere. And he was living in New York at the time. And one of my best friends, I said, listen, I'm trying to do this at IBM. I just started. I don't have a budget, but if I give you $400 out of my own pocket, would you take a bet with me here? And hopefully this will lead to more work for both of us. And he did. And he was just brilliant. He just came and shot it and edited it. And we did it total guerrilla style. I scheduled a conference room in our New York City office to do some of the scenes. And I went and bought the props and all that stuff. I mean, I was getting coffee for everybody. I mean, you do it all.
Well, you see what's going on here, don't you? So here you are at age 30, you get a calling from the big sales guy upstairs. And he says, I want you to drop everything and I want you to follow your gift of comedy. And you're like, oh God, at 30, I'm going to be an old man at 32. Are you kidding me? And then you go and do it. You get practiced at it. You get on some of the top stages And now you're brought into the corporate world. So when you say that you felt like this production was blessed, it probably was a little bit, because maybe it was his way of saying, look, we got to get the world to loosen up a little bit, especially the corporate world, because these guys control everything.
That's really funny you say that. Park, I think that's exactly what happened. Because once I got the project approved at IBM, I was like, oh gosh, now what do I do? And so I sat down to write the script, and I got to tell you, I can't take credit for any of it. I just started typing, and the words just came to me, and it wasn't my thinking. It was one of those things where you just can't take credit for it. You just feel like, okay, this is coming from somewhere beyond me, and I'm just here to serve, basically. So let me try to get the story out.
But you put in all the work prior to that.
Yeah.
And it does come together.
I would never diminish the fact of showing up. Look, showing up's not easy a lot of times. Yeah. And I still struggle with that a lot. So often, and it's so often I struggle with showing up. Even when an opportunity comes right my way, a lot of times I just have to, fight the demons of thinking, all right, I'm not qualified for this, and just say, you know what? None of that matters. Let me show up, and if something happens, something happens.
The imposter syndrome. That
whole
thing?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Heck yeah. So many of us struggle with that. And I think the thing is, if whether you believe in the big sales guy in the sky or just the universe or some benevolent force, I think it's critical to feel that, like, listen, there is something bigger than us that is about unconditional love. That is something that just accepts us all for who we are, with all of our, all of our shame and all of our flaws, and that's what makes the world work, I think the biggest tragedy is the biggest sadness is when we let fear get in the way of not showing up, and I've done that for so long. And I'm finally just now getting comfortable with saying, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go do this and see what happens.
Yeah, it's good. 2 weeks ago, Tim, I was in Anaheim, and I was invited to do the keynote directly following the CEO of Visit California for their entire, conference of 600 state marketers. And guess where it was? It was at Disneyland.
Yeah. Of course.
So I am now coming out on stage to talk about storytelling at the epicenter of storytelling in all the land, and talking about feeling like an imposter just a little teeny weeny bit. And the only way I could get over that was when I stepped out, is I just said, it's both an honor and terrifying to be teaching you storytelling at the epicenter of storytelling in all the universe. And I got a laugh.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I addressed that fear right up front, and yet, if I didn't have the guts 5 years ago to really start going down this path of storytelling, because I'm just so fascinated by it, I would have never found myself in that stage.
Oh, yeah.
And yet now I got this bucket list moment that I was proud of myself. When I got done, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's such a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of using humor to connect with people, to relate, but also to be authentic. Also to say, and to be vulnerable. It's a much easier to be vulnerable when you can do that in a humorous way and let people know, hey, look, this is terrifying for me. But people, listen, those 600 people in there, every one of them knows what terrifying is.
Yeah.
Every one of them's experienced that, but we don't sit around and talk about that. We never share that with people, or rarely do. And when you get up there and you say, hey, I'm experiencing this now and I'm terrified, people, there's just something that happens inside you that just is so grateful to hear that you're not alone. Those 600 people are thinking, my gosh, I'm not alone in this world. There's someone else and this is a guy speaking to us. Here's our keynote on stage telling us he's terrified. What a wonderful thing. And it invites us all to kind of let go of our own, the baggage that we carry.
And it's like that little pressure cooker nozzle that,
that's what
as soon as you say it,
and that's a laugh.
And then I can take a deep breath and okay, so I'm here just to help. I'm here to serve as best I can.
Yeah, that's right. And it also helps you, I would imagine, I'm not saying there was any pretense. Obviously there wasn't. You admitted to being terrifying, but it kind of helps remind you that, okay, I'm being human here. And it helps put you in that state of getting connected to your intent of, let me just help. Okay. Yeah. This is not about me. This is about sharing what I know about storytelling. And hopefully you guys will become better storytellers too. I mean, it's just I think that humility is just a powerful thing. And Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell somebody the truth, you better make them laugh. Otherwise they'll kill you. I love that quote. And I just think, I think making people laugh is just, it lets us really be our flawed selves in front of other people.
Well, how then you go over to Cisco for 7 years, and that has had to have been a tough gig to bring comedy into. How did you do it? How did you wedge your way in there and really make it work?
Well, I had a good friend of mine from business school, Melissa Mines, had seen some of the comedy I was doing at IBM for the Smarter Planet campaign. And so she invited me. She was in the service provider group. And so she invited me to come in and meet the exec running that group, a guy named Doug Webster. And this guy's really funny. He's hilarious, and a very bright guy, and has a ton of respect throughout the organization. So, when he says, I think we should take a risk on something like this, everybody's on board, and I think you need that in big organizations. You need a champion who one has the willingness to take a risk and likes, that appreciates innovation and sometimes the shiny object, the bright, shiny object. And two, has a political capital to, withstand failure, but also get people on board. Yeah. So that's how it worked. I mean, again, it was one of these things where things, the planets aligned and stuff. And okay, this is not my doing. Yeah. There's something bigger than me kind of guiding all this. And so we did our first video, with Melissa and with Doug Webster. It was about this ASR 9000, this big router. It's a $250,000 router.
Sexy thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Huge thing that we sell to like the big telecom companies of the world. And, we were launching it on February 9th. And of course, naturally you think, well, this is a perfect gift for Valentine's Day. Yeah. What you want to give your Valentine.
Absolutely.
And that was our first project. And so we did that, and we got written up in the New York Times, and we got all this coverage and, a ton of views.
So you gave it away as a Valentine.
That's what we did. We said, yeah, this is it. And it was so ludicrous, and of course there were plenty of people in the company who didn't like the idea of us being silly with the brand. And they think, no, you don't make fun of your product. And we weren't making fun of the product. But what we did is we said, you know what? We don't always have to take ourselves so seriously, and there's a powerful confidence in that when you show we're willing to be playful and, have some fun. And also we want to make you laugh. We appreciate you as a customer. And so we're spending money instead of selling you something, we're spending money and we hope you can make you laugh. And that's a gift to you. And I think all that stuff I just wish more brands would do that.
Yeah. Well, nothing says love like bandwidth.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's one of the 5 love languages, I think.
It is. And my wife often says, I think you better dial up that bandwidth a little bit, buddy. I said, oh, got it. Okay. Take us to your biggest comedic flop at Cisco.
Oh, man. My attorney said you wouldn't bring that up.
Yeah, but he's not here.
He's not here. So look, that was just not long after I moved over. Oh my goodness. This is 2010 and we,
can I get you some water?
Yeah,
folks, he's sweating water right now and I don't think it's the
water
sun.
And some smelling salt would be good. Man, we, Old Spice did this brilliant campaign. Where they did this online bit where they would they would take tweets and stuff. They would respond to people, or they would and celebrities, and they would come up with a commercial. They'd write a commercial really quick based on a tweet, not a commercial, but an online spot.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd shoot it and film it and produce it and then push it out, on YouTube.
All real time too, I think.
Yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was genius. It was so good. So good. And so we thought, well, what if we did this like live at one of our events, a little just at a networking, not at a network, at a computer network event. Let's do that. And then it kind of rolled into, well, why don't we do it online? Why don't we just do it online? And originally we thought, well, okay, let's explain. Let's first of all explain, we don't have $1 million budget. There are 3 of us doing this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we got money to hire a video crew to come in, but that's it. And so, the other thing was that we missed, and we should have done this. This would have helped. But whenever you do parody, you got to make it your own. You need to find something that's different, that is yours. And so we thought we'd make it kind of this nerdy business approach of Old Spice. And so we had these PowerPoint slides prepared for each one. But we just didn't have people to put the PowerPoint and turn them around.
So the big sales guy upstairs is giving you the shut it down.
You know what?
Shut it down.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah?
I tell you what, it sure crushed me. It really crushed me. So we did it. I thought we did a great job, and we met our goals were, can we get 5 industry analysts to retweet, to engage with, and that's who we reached out to. We call them out, and we create a short video for them,
And that was the mark of success.
Yes.
5 analysts to mention it.
That's right.
Tweet it.
And we got that. And we got a lot, and we did a great job in turning out videos for, again, a group of
what
3
happened?
people. Well, what happened is, we also did an intro video. We said right up front, okay, look, this is a couple of us and a video crew, just being silly. And, again, we're just trying to do something different. We admire what Old Spice did. So let's see if we can take that idea and honor that. And so what happened is a lot of people didn't watch that first intro video where we said, this is not corporate Cisco with a Madison Avenue agency doing this. We're just doing something silly for our nerd friends. And I tell you what, man, the haters and the trolls came out of the woodwork. And so while we met our objectives and we got
the rest of the world looked in and said, oh, look at you amateurs trying to knock off Old Spice, basically.
And people said, you look at Cisco as a big brand, and people think they have this expectation that they're going to do big brand things. And they think everything's going to be $1 million campaign with a Madison Avenue agency. That wasn't it at all.
Well, you got that Old Spice, ethic going on at the time. They're really trying to be disruptive and doing a good job with it.
And they did a brilliant job, right? Yeah. And that's one thing I learned about parody is be very careful, parodying a darling, because people want to just, still enjoy that and not think, I remember somebody saying, hey, get your own ideas. And, rightfully so.
They'll defend their darlings, won't they?
They will. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But we got some good coverage. And I remember Adweek wrote up something like Cisco does its nerdy version of Old Spice, and did anybody notice or something?
Well, and context is so much of it too, because Old Spice can pull it off, but Cisco, come on.
That's
even if you were even better than Old Spice and pulled that off, you still were in the context of the big lumbering tech company of Cisco.
That's right.
And all of a sudden they can't connect those 2 worlds.
That's exactly what that worked against us, and I tell you what, man, I really did. I went into a deep depression after that because so many people were saying fail, and
you start believing it.
Oh,
you start believing
you believe that
story.
and you think, man, I just started this new job. I also thought before that, I'm pretty good at helping big brands, be funny and connect with their audiences. And I know how to do that. And then you start questioning yourself. You talk about that imposter syndrome setting in. You're like, well, no, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not true at all. What we did was very funny, but yeah, it can still be a failure.
Yeah.
But I really was, man. I went into a deep depression for a couple of weeks. And you know what? But I went we'd already had a family vacation planned up in Estes Park. I went to Estes Park and I heard this really good sermon about, there's a YMCA there. There were 2 things that happened. I heard a really good sermon about failure. And in the sermon, the pastor was saying, he tells this analogy. There's a book called Art and Fear. And he talks about how these professors split up 2 groups of college students. And they tell the first group, they go, okay, look, we want you to make the best clay pot you guys can make. And you're going to be judged on just, how the perfection and, how awesome it looks and that kind of thing. Then they go to this other group And they said, okay, we want you to make clay pots. Now, here's how you're going to be graded. You're going to be graded on just sheer tonnage. I don't care what the clay pot looks like, but once you finish up, once the timer goes off, we're going to weigh your pots.
And we're going to sell them at IKEA.
Yes. And that's right. They said whichever, whether you group or the next group, whoever has the most, weighs the most, wins. Well, you can guess what happened. The first group, they spent all of the time that they had theorizing and trying to make sure they get the perfect clay pot before they start going. The second group could care less about it. They just start making clay pots. And by the time the clock runs out, they've had so much experience that they ended up making a clay pot that looks a heck of a lot better than the group who only had to make one. Yeah. And it was a good lesson that, so much of art and the creativity process is about just moving forward and keeping, to keep doing it and just failing.
And taking risks.
That's exactly right.
You're going to blow it because if you're not taking the risks and pushing it, then you're not really creating something new or novel.
That's right. And you cannot get to a good looking clay pot until you make a few lousy ones. And so that was a redeeming moment for me for sure. Yeah.
So you have since left Cisco. You were there for 7 years?
That's right. 7.5, I think.
7.5 years. And now you are specializing in corporate comedy. Is that right?
That's right.
So what are you doing exactly and who are you doing it for?
So a lot of it is public speaking, Spice World in Austin. It's Spice Works, but I went down to their event. It's called Spice World. I do a lot of customer conferences, user conferences, where they'll bring all their customers in. And they're looking for a little bit of entertainment, but they're also looking to give them some good ideas to help be more creative. So I'll go and I'll talk about that. I'll share about, the lessons we've learned and through doing comedy at IBM and at Cisco. And then I'll also, I'll talk about some of the rules I learned in comedy writing and in improv on how to get more comfortable with risk taking and how to do a better job approaching that. And so the goal is not for people to leave as comedians, but just to try some of these same exercises we do as comedy writers to get the brain working in a different way. And, 5 minutes a day of this juxtaposition exercise that I teach, 30 days later, people are going to be a lot more creative.
And just peeling back through humor to touch those emotions in there and then giving them, I guess, the permission in their own minds to be able to embrace that and say, run with it. It's going to feel a little weird and ambiguous and vulnerable. Yeah. But man, when you can really harness that and use that in your favor, you can literally nudge the world in any direction you want.
That's so true. I mean, communication is such a powerful tool in nudging the world whichever way you want it to. You're exactly right.
Yeah. How can people learn more about you and what you're up to?
On my website, it's Tim Washer, TimWasher.com. I got some stuff up there, some funny videos from Conan and the Onion Sports Network, and there's a funny Super Bowl commercial and some things like that. They can find me, and then a way to send me an email as well. That's Tim@TimWasher.com. So
And how do you answer the question, what is 1, 2, or 3 tips that you could give me and our listeners to approach comedy or finding the humor in what you're trying to do?
So the first thing, like we talked about earlier, I'd actually make an exercise of the whole comedy comes from pain. So I'd challenge everybody to sit down, grab a pen and paper, and then write down what's your customer's pain point, or write about your own personal pain point. What is for you? What is it? Turning on the blinker. Well, people that don't turn the blinker on.
And texting now. I mean, so that's one thing, but texting is probably even worse while driving. That I've almost gotten in numerous accidents because I was so pissed off at the person next to me
who was texting.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think that's fair.
Now, does it? I've seen you grimace, and I'm wondering if that's because I've been texting through this interview while on a pedal cart.
No, but I've been driving it over here, so you're good.
They're fair. Look, I'd explore it. Write down that pet peeve. Mm-hmm. Start with your own pet peeve. Let's keep it personal, and then write a bit about that. What makes you so mad about it? Why does it make you angry? And peel that onion a little bit, and just explore. It's just a creative process of just writing, and you're not sharing it with anybody at all.
Yeah.
So do that. And then maybe the next step is, okay, now let me look at our customers for my company, and let me take one complaint they have and explore that. Yeah. And let me put myself in my customer's shoes and figure out what that pain point is and write a bit about it. And then if you want to get to a comedy concept, a good video concept, a great way to do that is say, all right, you heighten it. You take this approach of comedy called heightening. So what
more ridiculous? When you say heightening, is that just a little bit more ridiculous?
You heighten it up to the ridiculous. Yes, to the absurd.
Okay.
So what would happen if this pain point they're experiencing, what if that went unchecked, the problem they're having? So whatever, our application at the office for HR takes too much time. We lose weeks to try to get a candidate qualified. That's our pain point, so what would happen? You heighten that. Well, what if it was years to get a candidate qualified, And then you take
they have a family, they grow a beard, they get 9 tats that you weren't expecting when they first came in.
There you go. And then you want to also put that in a situation where it's really time sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So what if this company that we're talking about is it's a neurosurgeon, right, operation, and somebody comes in and needs to be operated on right away, and you're like, look, can you just wait 6 months? Because we're in the process, we're hiring a new neurosurgeon. We've had the interview process, but we're waiting for it to get through.
Or they're already in the operating room, and the surgeon looks up at the anesthesiologist and says, how much anesthesia do you have?
That's right.
We're going to be here a while.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Can we hold the patient on for a while? Yeah. So that's the idea. You just put it in this absurd situation and heighten it, and then you have a video concept, you know? Yeah.
Well, speaking of absurd situations, thank you for having an interview out here as we have the helicopters coming over. We have the
that's a naval helicopter. I think that's Team 6 coming after us, actually.
It is. They're flying in. We're overlooking Joe's Crab Shack.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we are overlooking the Coronado Island.
Yeah.
The Hotel del Coronado and the naval base. So it's not a bad view. It's noisy, but not a bad view.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for being on this edition of the Business of Story. I really appreciate it.
Man, this is a blast.
Yeah.
This is a blast.
And thank you all for listening. If you have not been to social media marketing world, I highly recommend it. I've been here now the last 3 years, and it is just a fun place. 4,000 attendees here. There is every guru in social media around the world presents here, Tim being one of those. And then the camaraderie, we were just talking about that, is you kind of hear after being here 3 times, a lot of the same stuff, but you just find this amazing camaraderie with people that are just trying to find their way in the world, the world of social media. And I think humor, comedy, and what you teach, Tim, is hugely important for that. So that's awesome. And thank you all for listening and putting up with this edition of the Business of Story. If I can be of service to you, jump on over to businessofstory.com. Also have a brand new ebook out there, The 5 Stages of Grief in Your Business Storytelling. Tim, I got to send it to you. It's my shot at kind of comedy because I talk about a lot of my experiences and pratfalls and storytelling. You've got denial.
Yes.
And people say, oh, storytelling's a soft skill. That's a bunch of shit. I'll never, that won't work here. It's a gimmick, so you got to get them over that. And then there's anger. Well, my technical skills can beat up your soft skills anytime. There is bargaining.
Yep.
Oh, my God. I'll do anything. Don't make me tell a story, and then people are just bargaining away their equity of as a communicator. There's depression. Depression of like, I don't have a good story to tell. Nobody wants to hear my story. I've been on this planet for 60 years and I have 0 to say. Well, that's not true. And then there's finally acceptance. When you accept business stories or stories in your business, it's amazing how the world opens up to you. So you can download that free ebook right now, businessofstory.com. And I hope you enjoy it. Let me know. Leave a comment. Let me know if it's working for you. And until next Sunday, remember, the most potent story you are ever going to tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a good one. Thanks for listening.